All right. Thank you for joining us today. My name is Brian Mongkolpoonsuk, of course, Customer Success Manager here at KETIV Technologies, and welcome to Autodesk Virtual Academy, brought to you by KETIV Technologies. Today's number 67, what we used to call Fusion Fridays, and we will be revisiting a topic that we discussed 3 years ago. The last video that we uploaded was 3 years ago regarding meshes and how to go about them. And last time was definitely more of a T-spline approach. Today we'll be going more into maybe direct mesh editing, excuse me, uh, more so because of the new tools that Autodesk recently released inside of Fusion 360. Um, so let me go ahead and post in the chat here just some links that make it more relevant to you guys of like where I'm coming from. This is essentially, and let me make sure it's to everyone. This is essentially the link to the first one 3 years ago that was pretty popular. And it just taught us how to manage the models around the meshes back then. And today we're going to be diving into where we are with meshes now inside of Fusion. You can't do everything. Um, you can't just wave a magic wand and fix everything, but you could. There's a lot more tools that are out there, and I also want to mention that our good friend at Autodesk, Jason Lichtman, has an amazing webinar that he did that I'm also going to post here in the chat room. You can go ahead and bookmark that or something. But I highly recommend checking out this as another perspective into the mesh environment as well. I'm going to do some different examples. Some might be similar, but some might be different from Jason's. But definitely check these two webinars out. And with that said, let's go ahead and dive right on into it. So this might look familiar with you if you have been tuning in for the last 3 years. This was an example I used 3 years ago. And I want to show you what you can do now with this model. And I want to just show you the most powerful tool right off the bat, at least in my opinion, of what you can do to translate an STL or a mesh that was clearly converted. As you can see here, someone definitely exported as an STL or did a save as OBJ, or now Fusion, I think, can do 3MF, I think is the acronym for that. And they're sending you this file, whether it's to protect their intellectual property or whether they're uploading it to a website like thingiverse.com, where you can find a bunch of STL files for free. So let's go ahead and dive into Fusion 360 with this DeWalt Makita adapter. I believe it's like a hand power tool. So just like we did last time, we right-clicked and captured the design history down below here. You will notice that there's a mesh tab that just won't go away, which is a good thing. And this is where a lot of the new tools are. So with this, what we did last time, we went straight to a convert. Like we wanted to change what we did last time was to change the bottom of this. We went to a convert mesh, and right off the bat, it's already a little bit different here. You have two options here, whether you want it to be faceted, where it keeps the triangular shapes the way it is now, and then you're going to have the direct edit model and delete them later. Or you can choose a prismatic option, which we'll get to in just a moment here. But this will be the new tool that we'll be diving into. But there are one or two steps you have to take before clicking this option here. So this is the previous option, and let me just show you what it looks like if you were to go through it with it now. So it's giving us a little warning of how much time it's going to take for this to calculate. And in the past, if it's over 50,000 facets, then it's going to not even allow you to convert this and it'll error out. But this is just a warning of 10,000. So we are fine with that. And yeah, what we did in the past was we just converted this to a B rep. It's nice, and you can still do this. This is still part of your workflow. Autodesk didn't take away any functionality. They either just moved this somewhere else or what have you, but you can still delete the features like that, which is nice. But notice you can't get things like this fillet here. Like if you start trying to delete this corner, it's not going to repair as smoothly as you might think. And I already started to make it lag there. And as you can see, I tried deleting that face. It didn't quite work out for me. So that's some of the issues you may still run into until today. So let's go ahead and dive into the new tool. So I'm going to do an undo, or let's just go ahead and just delete all of these features down below here. And now we're back with our original mesh again. And what we're going to head towards, and I'm just going to run into errors on purpose because I have a feeling you will run into the same errors. So if we go back to that modify convert mesh tool, and we choose the one we're trying to head towards, which is this prismatic tool, I'm going to select this model as the tool I want to, or the body I want to convert. And just real quick before I hit OK, there are two options here: parametric, which links to the relationships of anything previously, and base, which kind of starts from scratch and breaks any links that might have existed previously to maybe give you a more lighter weight model. I'm going to go ahead and try to hit OK here, and we're going to see an error because we didn't follow the formalities of this workflow. So essentially, it's trying to calculate the meshes and is trying to see that this is one flat face, but we didn't line it up to be successful by giving it what is called this new tool called face groups. Now, face groups automatically defines what each face is a part of, what group it is. Like this face here. Let me try to use this tool, this red tool. Everything over here. I don't know if you guys can see that, but that's a little ugly. But that is essentially supposed to be one face, right? And with face groups, it's going to define that for us, and then it's going to whisper over to the conversion tool to tell it, hey, that's going to be one face. Please convert it for me. Whereas if you just try to send it to that tool now, it's not going to understand that. So we're going to go into generate face groups here. And then we're going to select the body to generate it for. And there are two types here. There is the fast type, and this tries to generate it as fast as it can. And I don't see why anyone would want to use this unless they have a pretty dumbed down model to begin with, or if you have somewhere that you need to go. But I would recommend using accurate because you want your mesh to be as accurate as possible. And then boundary tolerance. So this is really important as well. So if you do 0.1, it's going to be maybe less tolerance. It's not as sensitive as if you were to do 0.001 millimeters. And I'm actually going to do 0.001 to show us what you might run into doing it this way. And then you can check this box to see a little preview of it, which is fine. And then there's only 5,000 faces, which is not a crazy amount either. So we can go ahead and generate these face groups here. And it's going to think a little bit about that. And right now we aren't seeing the face groups. We're seeing just a regular gray mesh. And this is because we haven't had the face groups turned on, the viewing of it. And I'll show you right after this is done loading what that looks like. So it just finished for us and we have this face group feature. But let's go ahead and go to our display settings down below here, mesh display, and then turn on face groups. And now if you're familiar with color component cycling toggle, this is similar to that, but for face groups. So you can see that this face I was talking about earlier, this is now considered one, and it's all defined by that one light blue color there, which is really reassuring. Mind you, I did have 1.001 millimeters of a tolerance turned on. So that actually was so sensitive that it made this face here, which should have been one face, into two faces, which we will see what will happen next. But we got most of what we're trying to look for done here, and I'm going to come back to this in just a moment. But now if we go to convert, now if we're conveying to our tool, hey, we have our face groups now. Let's try to convert this to see what it gives us. And sorry about the wait. I try to do it as much of live as much as possible. And I think this isn't too terribly too long to wait for it to finish. There's definitely some other scans that, or it's not scans, other STL conversions that take a lot longer than this. So just mind you, you might be spending a little bit of time jumping through some of these ropes. So hopefully I could save you some of that time. As you can see here, it did not convert it as you might expect, because like I was mentioning earlier, there were those two faces there, and it shouldn't have been as sensitive as it was. And that was due to the tolerance that we set it at. So there's definitely a little bit of a learning curve, I would say. I wouldn't say you can just use this right off the box and it's a one fit all kind of thing. That's why they have those tools there for you. As you can see there, there's some issues there as well. But you can see that there's a lot of features that it cleaned up. Like at the bottom here, you see that fillet that we saw earlier. We can just delete that. Okay, it's not a solid body, but once we get the other model, we can delete it. And now it fixed all of that, all of the that meshes. I was gonna say messes, the meshes that were there on the corner there. So let's turn the tolerance to 100 thousandths or 0.1 millimeters and see what results that will give us. So let's go ahead and delete that conversion, double click on this and change this to 0.1. And let's take a look at what the 0.1 will give us, which is going to be more or less the same, but you'll see some differences where we need to see them. Thank you very much. And there's one face there, which is reassuring. These guys look good. Let's go ahead and convert this to the prismatic bodies. And as you can tell, they're both faster because there's less to work with, less tolerance. And thankfully, now we have a solid body that this face is fixed there. Everything looks really clean. And mind you, we have just taken an STL body from Thingiverse or from your vendor, and they thought they would be sneaky enough to export it as an STL file to you to protect their IP or intellectual property, but we just converted it back to the solid bodies. We don't have the sketches, of course, but we still have like the entire B-rep body that's editable. And now let's try the moment of truth there. There we go. We do it to both sides just to keep things even there. So yeah, wanted to show that right off the bat because I think that was one of the biggest new improvements inside of the Fusion Mesh workspace that came out about a couple months ago. So definitely worth playing around with yourself. And definitely let me know if you have any questions in the chat about this. I am happy to answer any more towards the end. And this will be on YouTube in a couple of weeks. All right. So let's go ahead and dive into the next example. I did want to show something that wasn't all the same examples from 3 years ago, of course. So I found this Groot head on thingiverse.com, and I thought there were some great examples I can pull from this relevant to some of the new tools. So if we go here to our Groot head, this is actually a pot plant for plants. And as you can see here, there's a little water hole here for the water to escape. But let's say I have a lot more water, or it's a plant that doesn't want any water whatsoever sitting with it in the dirt. For those plant enthusiasts out there, you might know what I'm talking about. So I want to make a bigger hole here at the bottom. But we don't want to do what we did in the last example, which was convert everything to a B rep or convert everything to a yeah, essentially be an editable model. And the reason being is because look at all these little triangles. There's way too much for it to convert. And trust me when I say it's going to take you way too long. If not, it will fail when trying to convert this. So what do you want to do? What you can do is use one of the new tools, which is directly editing this in the mesh environment. So let's go ahead and dive into some of these new tools here. So first, let's capture the design history. And if we want to create a hole for the water to escape, we are going to create it here at the bottom because that's how it's going to travel through our pot. And taking a look at the bottom here, looks like someone sliced poor Groot. If you watch Guardians of the Galaxy, his head off here for the plant, and they did not clean up very well down below here. So we're going to go into Mesh, and we are going to go into the new Direct Edit tool. So if you're familiar with surface modeling, it's like a similar idea where you can directly edit. Not even surface modeling. I mean, the Fusion 360 parametric direct edit that we just did works as well. So we're going to directly edit this body here. And there's a lot of ways you can go about it. Here's one way that I want to show you. So if I want to kind of clean this up and remesh this, I'm going to try to select a few features here. I'm clicking and holding, and I'm just trying to select some features there. I'm accidentally clicking features on the outside, and I can clean that up in just a bit here. But I want to make sure I select the ones on the inside. And notice how there's all these little lines that I can't even get to. And I'm not going to try to hurt my eyes trying to see which ones are to be selected. I can go to this grow and shrink tool here, and I can grow my selection instead, and it'll cover my bases there. And notice how there's these extra selections here on the outside. Well, I don't want to select some of this because if I were to remesh this, I don't want to remesh some of the features I actually want to keep for Groot's neck here. Or if I accidentally click like over here, I definitely do not want to remesh that because that's part of his texture. It's part of his face. So I could just hold Alt. I tried holding multiple things, but Alt was definitely the one for this one. Hold Alt to remove. It's like holding Control, except it's Alt this time. And you can change the brush size as well on the right hand side, but I'm just holding Alt and then just selecting or clicking and dragging to unselect some of these features here to kind of clean it up. All right, that's good enough. And then let's go ahead and do a remesh. Sure. And once that's remeshed, you can see here we still kept a lot of his handsome little chin there, except now let's go ahead and take a look at, I like to always check with my visual styles here to just make sure it's going to look the way and have the same details as it did before. And it might have taken away some at the very end there. If I spent a little bit more time, I would have made that just a little cleaner. But for the most part, I think I'd say 90% of that is pretty darn good. So let's go ahead and go back to our visible edges there. And we are done with that portion. Next, to create the hole at the bottom, let's go ahead and exit the direct editing. And we're going to go to solid. And this is, so I'm not going to like try to be very, very detailed with this was, in Fusion before and this wasn't. Because to be honest, I don't remember exactly what was in here previously. But what I am going to do here is I'm going to create a 3D body that kind of goes through for the hole. And I'm going to use this as a cutting tool. Having troubles rotating this here. I'm going to use this as a cutting tool for the water drainage. And what you might have had to do in the past was export this as an STL, this new body here. As you can see, this is a mesh. This is a regular body. But now, with the new mesh tools, there's a one-click tessellate tool where you can just convert it in-house or in this workspace. And again, I don't I don't believe this was in here, like a one-click button like this 6 months ago. I think this was more recent than that, along with a lot of these other tools like Shell, which we'll get into in just a second. So we'll go ahead and convert this into a mesh body, quite simply like that. And then if you know where I'm going next, I'm going to use the combine tool. And I'm going to select the target body that I want to cut, the tool body that I want to cut with, use the cut operation, and then I would hit OK here, but I've done it too many times where I know that with this mesh of 257,000 facets, it's going to take a long time. And I'm not going to have everyone wait here, or I don't want to crash my machine either. So what we can do, there's a couple options. One is you could remesh it and dumb it down, which we don't want. We want to keep the Groot's happy face here and make it look as detailed as possible. Two is to split the body so we can only do a cut operation of just the bottom half of his chin, and then we can combine it again later. So we can go ahead and use the plane cut tool. Let's go this body, and then we'll cut up to about, let's go just past his mouth there just to make sure. Fill type, uniform, split body. Okay. All right, now we got two different colors there because of the, not the color component cycling toggle, but the face groups. So now we can hide the top part of him. And now this is going to be much easier for us to do the cut tool. So now it's going to go ahead and cut that for us. And I should have looked at our faces. I'll look at it after, of how much less there is to work with rather than the. So if we take a look at the mesh body, it was 200,000 something before. Now it is 55,000. I'd say rule of thumb, and this is me just from experience, 100,000 and more, you're going to have a harder time with it. Again, depending on your hardware, depending on your machine, depending on how much you want to wait, 100,000 or more, that's when you start to be more cautious when doing a conversion or a combined cut operation. But luckily, we got a bigger hole now. And you can see here in the meshes, you aren't typically able to do something like this where you can directly edit the mesh itself. And that's pretty cool to be able to do that without having to mess with, or mesh with, if you will, the rest of Groot's head there, because there's a lot of detail that we don't want to get into trouble. And the last operation that we can do is do a combine of these two, and that's it. And then you can send it off to a 3D printer or what have you. So that's the Groot operation there. That's example number 2. We're going to go into example number 3 now, which is, if you recognize this is the intake manifold example that we did 3 years ago. Let's see where we're at with this now. Let's see what we are capable of doing to this model. So here it is right here with the face group coloring in all its glory. And we'll go ahead and dive right on into it. Right click, capture design history. And in this case, I want to create, just like before, and quickly, a spline that goes through the center of this. So bear with me as I create that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Sure. And then it's nice to work with 3D sketches. It's very straightforward. Let's go with that. I think I'm selecting more than one part there. I jinxed myself. It's getting harder. I'm not sure what just happened there. Let me delete that and do that again. Spline. And I'm just counting for no reason here. It's not actually a technique. All right, let's see if this will behave this time. There we go. I can move it manually if I want to get it more centered to where I want it to be. And one more. And this is a spline that's roughly going through the center of this mesh. All right. So next, again, my favorite tool. Let's do a finished sketch. My favorite tool is a plane along path, because you can just select this path and you just drag this wherever you want, or you can put in the value. So let's go with 0.9. We'll just do a handful. I don't want to do a terrible amount and have everyone wait. So let's just do a handful. Let's just subtract 0.15. So 0.75. 0.6. And 0.45. All right. So we have 4 of them here. And what we've done in the past, and I'm just going to show it here real quick, was we converted this into a B-rep body, and then we projected the silhouette of it. So we did the convert mesh, faceted, and then real quickly we got a bunch of different triangles that we can directly edit from the model, which is fine. We could definitely still head down this path. Maybe I shouldn't have pulled that. We could definitely still head down this path because it did give us a pretty clean feature. Oh, I really should not have done that as an example there. Let's cancel out that. And then I projected them onto the sketch, and then we did a manual spline that went around each one of these. So that one took quite a while for that to happen. Let me show you the other way that you can go about it now. So there is a similar tool inside of Fusion now that allows you to create a mesh section. And I believe this might have been here already, but I just want to draw this to your attention, which is the ability to, instead of having to convert this to the B reps, you can just use the mesh as what you want to project. And it gives you this nice, clean, it's not actually a sketch you can utilize until later. And I'll show you what I mean. But you get that nice, clean little representation of it that might be cleaner than those triangles that we just saw earlier. So we'll do that a couple more times. It depends your use case scenario, to be honest. There's no one workflow fits all. And that's why they have so many different tools at your disposal for that reason. All right, so now we have a bunch of different profiles that we can, but if we try to loft them together, so if I go to solid and I try to go to loft, it won't let me select that. It's not a profile you can select yet. And the reason being, it's just that's the way it is. The only way you can make it something selectable is if you go in here to your sketch or into the sketch itself, and then you can use this tool called Fit Curves to Mesh Section. And if you use this tool, you can manually draw the spline in yourself, or you can select closed spline. So if I select this as a closed spline and hit OK, now it's a profile I can extrude. And if I do that again to the next one here, so if we double click on that sketch, Fit Curves to Mesh Section, let's go ahead and select that profile. Okay, finish sketch. Now we have 2 profiles that we can loft between. But let me show you why I wouldn't go with this route, because if I try to loft 1 and 2, Oh, it's not visible. Hold on, let me turn it on. That's actually not bad, but it's supposed to look a little bit worse than this. Because if you look in the closer to it, I mean, I guess you can go this route, but you 9 times out of 10, I'm getting a very rigid looking loft, and it's not as clean as this one. This one looks a lot more clean. But you can see here that it's starting to be more rigid as opposed to a smooth surface there that you might get from a T-spline. So that's one of the reasons why I wouldn't head down that path of just using the fit curves to spline methodology. You definitely still can, but let's take a look at our other options here. So let's go back into, let's do an undo train here. Undo, undo, undo. Okay, now we're back to where we were before. What I did stumble upon, and I think this might be the better solution for this route. Again, it doesn't have to be, but I want to share with you. Fit curves to mesh section, still using that tool, but instead of the close spline tool, we are going to use the circle tool because this is pretty close to the circle. And if we select on this spline or this mesh projection here, it will give us this blue circle instead of that of the silhouette of this, which was very jagged and not nice to loft. If you try to do ellipse, which this actually looks more like, the tool actually doesn't work right now. What it just did right there was it created this little circle in the middle, which is not what I'm looking for. So maybe there's a little work that might need to be done for that, or I'm using it wrong. But the circle tool seems to work relatively fine. Of course, it's not as close as the model as I would want it to be, but it is a step in the smooth direction. So if I were to do the circle tool for the other three here, just go circle, go to the third one. Let's create another circle. And then the fourth one here. I know we're going a little over time here. Usually we have like 30 minutes or so for this, but bear with me. Sure, I'll assure you it's worth it in the end here. And then we will, instead of lofting it with like a regular loft, let's go ahead and loft it with the T-spline loft because you can move that around later. Loft, let's go 1, 2, 3, and then 4. And now we have this sleek looking T-spline body, which is similar to the original mesh body. That's definitely off right there. And maybe we can do a sort of a shrink wrap, not a shrink wrap, but like a similar shrink wrap tool, like a pull command, and edit it more later. But it gets you in the right direction. It's way more smooth than using the previous tool I was talking about. And again, you can use the steps that were shown in the video 3 years ago. That's why we had that video out there, because it is an option. But this is just another option and another tool you can start heading down towards. All right. So let me see the other new, or let me share with you just quickly other new features that are definitely worth mentioning, because I don't have time to show everything, but I'm going to show you, I'm going to at least mention it here. So if we want to essentially make this a solid body or fix this model, there's a lot of new repair tools inside the mesh environment now. So if we go here to repair and we want to repair this, look at all these different repair types that exist now. I won't dive too much into each of it, but there are more repair types. And if we hit OK here, it'll just close up that hole for us, which is really nice. And then there's also new shelling capabilities. And again, this might not be the best example for this, but you can shell this model out. And if I make this opaque, you can see what that looks like. You can see that it's shelled out there in case you need to use this for 3D printing or what have you. And I'm just going through this quickly just to share with you what it looks like, and what else it's capable of. But there's also, turn that back. There's also a very awesome and powerful repair or analyze functionality inside of Fusion 360's preview environment currently. So if you go over here to preferences, preview features, mesh repair analysis, turn that on. And then let's go and direct edit this. This is the last example, and then I will let everyone go here, but let's go to edit feature. Let's go ahead and delete that. Let me do that again. I think I messed that up. Direct edit, delete. Okay, there we go. All right, there's a hole in there clearly. Since we have that new preview turned on, we can go ahead and go to repair now. And now with the repair tool, besides these 4 options we have here, there's an analyze defects tool that allows us to take a look at. It's like a sketch doctor, if you've worked with a sketch doctor before, all the different issues that may be prevalent in your model. Open boundary, there's that here, which it's detecting, and it will help fix it for us as well once we hit OK. And there you go. It fixed our mesh for us. And it even told us like what was the issue, and it fixed it for us. So very powerful tool. It was so quick and easy to use as well, as you just saw there. So definitely check that out when you're editing with meshes here. And that wraps it up. That's the last feature that I wanted to share. And those are those examples. This will be on YouTube in a couple of weeks here. So definitely reference it if you need to edit meshes in your future. And then upon next month, my colleague Alex will be returning to help do some of these Fusion Friday or AVAs as well. So look forward to some manufacturing, the return of manufacturing webinars in the future for machining, because I know there's a lot of new updates on that side as well. So yeah, if you have any questions, I'll hang around for a couple minutes here to help answer any. But if not, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your time out of the day, and happy Friday as well. So I'll stick around for another 30 seconds or so in case you have any questions. You can definitely ask it in the chat, or if you're watching from YouTube, you can definitely leave a comment as well. And then my good friend and colleague Christina will be sending those questions over to us. So let's see if we have any. Okay, there is a question. Why are piping not available in Fusion 360? Well, it's not a new tool, Fusion is, but it is like a newer tool, and it doesn't have all the tools and functionalities that might have existed in other more mature tools like Inventor or SolidWorks. Those have been around a while, and they've definitely added some of those needed functionalities in there. There is technically a tool called Pipe inside of Fusion that you can create pipe, but it's not the mature piping that you think it would be. Fusion serves another purpose. It doesn't serve fully as like a deep bill of materials kind of software. It's more of a whether it's for manufacturing and you want to use this in the machine shop, or whether you want quick iterations of a new design. It's more lightweight and dynamic. Fusion is, so I would use it in addition to maybe tools you have existing. So if you have like the product design and manufacturing collection, you can use Inventor for piping. And if you are trying to do a quick mesh edit, then that's when you'd open up Fusion. So best of both worlds. Good question though. All right, I don't see any other questions coming in. So thanks again, and I will see everyone next month.